morning. Welcome to the last day of October 2025. Today is October 31st, 2025. Of course, the last Friday and of course the last day in the month of October. You see, I'm already waiting to launch it to November. My name is Winifred Ugbebo, and your host on the program Inside Nigeria. Today's show, we are looking at what the national papers are saying, including Nigeria's foremost Friday newspaper, Leadership Friday. Let's go there and see Leadership's leading story this Friday. Refiners hate Tinubu's imposition of 15% duty on imported petrol diesel. Refiners hate Tinubu's imposition of 15% duty on imported petrol diesel. Of course, it was reported yesterday that the president, Bola Tinubu, has actually imposed 15% duty on imported fuel and diesel. This has continued to generate controversy in the country. The story today runs on page 4 of Leadership newspaper. Perhaps we can see some excerpts from that leading story. Nigeria's local refining operators have applauded the federal government's approval of a 15% ad valorem import duty on premium motor spirit PMS and diesel, saying the measure will deter cheap foreign imports, safeguard domestic refiners, and bolster energy security. In a confidential memorandum seen by Leadership Friday, dated 10 October 2025, and signed by Zach Adedeji, chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service (FIRS), and addressed to President Tinubu, the proposal sought approval for a measured import tariff on PMS and diesel. A subsequent memorandum dated 21st October 2025 with reference number PRES 8197/HAGF/100/71/FIRS/40/88 2/NMDPRA/2 was circulated from the State House to the Attorney General of the Federation, the FIRS, and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA. The memo, signed by Damilotun Aderemi, the President's private secretary, conveyed President Bola Tinubu's approval for a new market-responsive import tariff framework on petrol and diesel imports. In the confidential memorandum dated 10 October 2025 and circulated for presidential approval, officials framed the tariff as a targeted instrument to align import costs with Nigerian realities, nurture local refining capacity, and stabilize the downstream market under the Renewed Hope agenda. The memo, which was later formalized in a directive to the FROS and the NMDPRA, outlined the rationale. The tariff serves as a corrective market-sensitive tool designed to deter underpriced imports that undermine local refiners while preserving affordability for consumers. We just read some excerpts from today's leading story on Leadership Friday on refiners hate Tinubu's imposition of 15% duty on imported petrol diesel. We continue with a review of front headline stories on Leadership Friday. On the cover photo, we have the Vice Chairman, Leadership Group Limited, Michael Query, Chairman, CEO, Green Energy International Limited, Professor Anthony Adegbulugbe, and Director, Leadership Group Limited, Abraham Dazaya, during the presentation of the Leadership Award nomination letter to Green Energy International Limited for its recognition as the Oil and Gas Local Content Champion of the year 2025. Congratulations to the company. Beneath that picture, politics, Bauchi Assembly Rights Senate sees creation of 29 new councils. 9 die in Lagos Ondo accidents. Commission enhances staff capacity ahead of 2026 Hajj. Senate confirms Bernard Doro as Humanitarian Affairs Minister. President to service chiefs, Nigerians want results, not excuses. That story is also a leading story in some of the papers we have on our lineup this morning. President to service chiefs, Nigerians want results, not excuses. And the story continues on page 28 of Leadership. Army chief redeploys senior officers, appoints others in shake-up. The story is on page 7 of Leadership. And towards the masthead of Leadership Friday, on the news, Natasha invites Akpabio orders for project inauguration. Of course, this story has been trending since yesterday when the news broke out, and many are wondering, oh, have they finally made their fences? Talking about the lingering protracted and heated crisis between Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Perhaps this is a prelude to that maiden offenses. Still on the news, the Watida Governor Bastom House as 6 reps join ruling party. And lastly, on the cover of Leadership Friday this Friday, Saudi Arabia turned down Messi stint ahead of 2026 World Cup, says official. That story is on page 30 of Leadership. And before with that story, we move to page 3 of Leadership, where we have our stand. Today's stand is on road carnage beyond statistics. The statistics from the Federal Road Safety Corps, FROC, are not just numbers. They represent shattered families, stolen futures, and dreams buried on Nigeria's highways. Over 3,400 people were killed in crashes between January and September 2025. The 5,421 fatalities recorded in 2024 marked a 7% increase from 2023, despite a 10% reduction in total crashes. Behind these figures lies a story of preventable tragedy enabled by systemic failure in enforcement, technology deployment, and accountability. We move towards the closing, or towards the end of the stand, where the paper actually takes a stand. It said the FRSC has done well in gathering data and diagnosing causes, but the nation now needs action, firm, consistent, and technology-driven. Mandatory speed limiters, automated enforcement, and genuine criminal accountability are not optional. They are urgent moral imperatives. Every month of delay costs 300 to 400 lives. Each death leaves behind a family grieving because the system refused to act. It is no longer enough to preach caution or launch Ember Month campaigns. The time for slogans has expired. Nigeria must now build permanent systems that make speeding physically impossible for commercial drivers, make violations financially painful through automation, and make killing through reckless driving legally catastrophic. Today's stand in Leadership newspaper, road carnage beyond statistics. From today's stand, we go to the back page of Leadership Friday, and of course is conversation with Azu, and today's conversation is the log in America's eye. Perhaps that's the conversation Azu wants to share with us today, the log in America's eye. And quote from that conversation says, to describe the attacks in Nigeria as a genocidal assault on Christians, however, is like classifying the regrettable rise in homicidal incidents in the U.S. as a genocidal attack on blacks and minorities. Quote from today's conversation with Azu Ishekwenen, the log in America's eye. Before we leave the back page, let's visit Ghana Must Go. On the news, Ladigbolu backs Tinubu's reforms, urges Nigerians to endure for prosperity. And Ghana Must Go ask, who is this one? Please, who is this one? Is that note, on that note, to conclude today's review of front headline stories, page 3, the stand, and the back page of Leadership newspaper. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of those headline stories. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Punch. The Punch is still on the same leading story as that of Leadership. It says petrol soars above 1,000 naira per litre as Tinubu okays 15% import tariff. Federal government moves to protect Dangote local refineries from cheap imports. Few importers face tighter margins. Kicker to the leading story on The Punch this Friday. Petrol soars above 1,000 naira per litre as Tinubu okays 15% import tariff. Bayelsa Deputy Governor sues Assembly over impeachment plot. Oando records 164% surge in profit after tax. Party registration, INEC disqualifies 6 political groups. Corp 4 others die in Lagos-Ibadan expressway crash. Over 30 states rely on federal allocation, report on The Punch. And beside the masthead of The Punch, U.S. defense showing cars visa revocation. And that story is on page 3 of The Punch. U.S. defense showing cars visa revocation. And on the top masthead of The Punch, EFCC, NFIU launch crackdown on alleged coup funders. Army reshuffles top ranks, redeploy 67 generals, detained officers' names uncovered. Of course, the story has been trending since yesterday with the names of those detained, the names of the officers that were said reported to be involved in the alleged coup plot. And that is what the Punch newspaper has above on its masthead. Army reshuffles top ranks, redeploy 67 generals, detained officers' names uncovered. That story continues on pages 2 and 7 of the Punch newspaper. And that also brings to a close the review of front headline stories of the Punch this Friday. For more, log in to the website of the Punch newspaper. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard is talking insecurity and to the new service chiefs. Give us results, not excuses, Tinubu tells service chiefs. Give us results, not excuses, Tinubu tells service chiefs. Orders them to smash armed groups in North Central, Northwest, as security threats constantly evolving. Service chiefs assume office, vow to end insecurity. And rider to that story says major shakeup in army. Major shakeup in army. That story is on page 27 of Vanguard. Give us results, no excuses, Tinubu tells service chiefs. The story continues on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. The second leading story on today's Vanguard, 2025 federal government earns 28.331 trillion naira in 9 months, shares 16.446 trillion naira, spends 10.446 trillion naira on transfers, refunds, orders, collects 5.656 trillion naira as allocation, states get 6.749 trillion naira, local governments 4.04 trillion naira. Revenue collection cost gobs 1.052 trillion naira. Kicker to the second leading story on Vanguard. 2025 federal government earns 28.331 trillion naira in 9 months, shares 16.446 trillion naira. Beneath that, defections top plot to impeach me, Bayelsa deputy governor begs court. Federal government operators differ on states' capacity to regulate electricity market. And in sports, NFF says chair remains Super Eagles coach, World Cup or not. He has a 2-year contract, says Gusso. That is sport news. NFF says chair remains Super Eagles coach, World Cup or not. He has 2-year contract, says Gusso. And we move to the masthead of Vanguard. Oando records 164% rise in profit, 210 billion naira in 9 months. In Anambra Showdown 2025, Soludo's promise to APGA members meant to fight voter apathy. State government. History as Conga Group CEO Prince Eke wins Forbes Euro Knowledge Global Awards. NDDC, Ogbuku's vision reflects in Niger Delta, Yayiri, Emami. And that concludes review of front headline stories on Vanguard this Friday. For more, log into the website of Vanguard newspaper. Still talking security and the new service chiefs, Daily Sun is leading with the story Tinubu gives new military chiefs marching orders, directs officers to restore peace, flush out insurgents, match new threats, says Nigerians expect results, not excuses. We also have the picture of Nigeria's Conga Group CEO, Prince Eke wins Forbes Euro Knowledge Global Awards. Federal government close to single window policy implementation at ports, says Shetima. NLC furious over move to amend NSITF ECA Act, vows to resist plan. Adeleke accuses federal government of withholding local government allocation for political reason. Tinubu approves 4 trillion naira bond to clear power sector debts. And towards the masthead of Daily Sun, Nigerians will suffer over 15% fuel import tariff, APC chieftain warns, says President Tinubu ill-advised. Defection, Presidency APC governors APC NWC to receive Diri on Monday, sees Enugu reps dump opposition parties for APC. And that concludes review of front headline stories on Daily Sun newspaper. For more, log in to the website of Daily Sun. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian says justice on trial as courts battle neglect, infrastructure deficit. Big story is a big story that runs on pages 4 and 5 of the paper. Justice on trial as courts battle neglect, infrastructure deficit. JAMB probes 10 staffers over corrupt practices. Oando records 164% growth as profit hits 210 billion naira in 9 months. Petrol may hit 1,163 naira per litre as federal government targets 4.8 trillion naira yearly from fresh tariff. APC gains upper hand in House as defections reshape power balance. Federal government unveils national cash voucher policy to strengthen humanitarian response. Anambra Guba polls EU partners call for ban on non-statutory security groups. 8 of 14 new parties scale documentation hurdle, INEC says. And towards the masthead of The Guardian, Nigerians expect results, not excuses, Tinubu tells service chiefs. Nigeria shouldn't be among hunger-stricken countries, says Obi. Lastly, on the cover of The Guardian, CBN banks can downgrade licenses if unable to meet recapitalization threshold. And that story concludes the review of other stories on the cover of The Guardian this Friday, October 31, 2025. For more, log into the website of The Guardian, www.guardian.ng. So that's all for now for today's program Inside Nigeria on our program Newspaper Review. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of those headline stories. My name is Winifred Webo. Here's wishing you a beautiful weekend ahead. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.